Well, hey, welcome. Glad you're here. I'm Jay. This is a We're All Just Tourists channel, and I'm glad you're just spend a little time with me today. I'm going to chit chat, and I'm really trying to see how my equipment's working and see where's the best place to look at and that sort of thing, because I'm not really familiar with this whole YouTube stuff. Of course, I will learn it just like everybody else has done. Hopefully provide something of value for you. That's my goal. I'm glad you stopped by. Glad you're paying attention, or at least listening to these ramblings of me here in a minute. My name's Jay. I'm over 60. I live in rural North Carolina. I'm a retired police officer. I've been to a lot of different things. I've done a lot of different jobs. And my last real job, in theory, was as a police officer in Oregon, and I retired from that. Now, of course, I own a little restaurant, which I'm going to let somebody else enjoy. And I had an automobile dealership here, and I'm going to let somebody else enjoy that. And I'm going to really retire and just chit chat and try to get to know you and try to help folks, because I've got a little bit of knowledge. I was in Russia. First time I visited there was in 1998, I think. And in Russia, I was teaching applied psychology. Now, I've been teaching applied psychology at the university level for a bunch of years in the U.S., and I'd never been to Russia, but I wanted to go. So I'd studied a lot about the people. In the military, I studied about the Spetsnaz, the special operation people, and my job was to be able to counter them in my job. That's a different video, I'm sure. So I knew a little bit about Russia, but not a lot. So I went there, and I got an opportunity to teach at a university. Now, I didn't speak Russian, so I had a translator, and it was really a time for me to go and enjoy the culture, enjoy the people, and to learn some things that I, of course, didn't know. So my first trip there was in the late 90s, and I had a translator who was a wonderful girl named Natalia. And she was great in translating written English. She was almost 100% with that. With verbal language, spoken language, she was about 70%. She had never been to the West, and so the colloquialisms that I use, the language that I use, didn't make sense to her, because she didn't have a basis of reality for which she can translate. One of the comments that I use is that ideas fall out of their mouth like gumballs from a gum machine, which is a colorful turn of phrase about the way ideas come out of people's mouths sometimes. And she couldn't translate that because she wasn't familiar with gumball machines. In fact, at the time where she was, there were no gumball machines because they didn't use coins. And so there were no coin machines. And if there's no coin machine, there were no ball gum machines, and she couldn't translate that. So I had to do, of course, changing in my language and cut down some of the colloquialisms so that it would be more applicable to the people that I was teaching. Great ability to meet people who wanted the same thing that I want in life, and that is they wanted a good life for themselves and a good life for their family and a better life for their kids than what they've had for themselves. And I found that the Russian people to be very warm, open, and just wonderful people. But one of the things that the point of this is the difference between Eastern and Western point of view. I was talking about, and I'm not sure who the person I was talking about. We're talking about a person of note in the news, and I mentioned to my translator, who's really the only person that was speaking English in the area I was at, and I mentioned that he's worth $40 million or whatever the number was. And she looked very quizzically at me. She said, "What do you mean he's worth $40 million? How do you find value by a dollar amount, a monetary amount? How can you find value from somebody based on that concept. And it never really struck my mind until she said it, that we placed value on people based on how much they had how much they accumulated. They're worth $40 million, or they're a negative. They owe more money than they have. And I know intellectually that that's not true, that the value of a human being is not by their net worth or their value in monetary terms. I know that. But we use that language and we kind of use it as a shorthand when we're talking about somebody who's particularly wealthy. They're worth 30 million, they're worth 3 million, 5 million. And it really stopped me in my tracks, and it made me realize that there's a perspective, particularly in Eastern European, that was completely different than the Western. And that is, people were valued by who they are, but not what they have. There's a concept that you may be familiar with. It's something that came to me 30 years ago, and it's called do, be, have. And we define who we are. I'll do a video about do, be, have. Do is what we do in our life. Have is what we have in our world, in our life. And be is who we are independent of what we have or what we do. And those three components define our self in a lot of people's thinking. Sometimes people think it's just about the be. I'm not sure that it's not. But their emphasis was not what you have, but who you are. And that's the value of a human being, not how much you have. Of course, your mileage may vary.